Hi, everyone. This is Hal Krosman with Screenwriting U, and today we're going to do an analysis of the movie The Godfather. Now, if you're like most people, this is a movie that you've seen and very likely loved. I was surprised when I looked to see, on the list of the top movies of all time, The Godfather was either number one or within the top 5 of every list I saw. So it has had a significant impact on this industry, on writers, on filmmakers, on actors, on the way we think about writing some movies, and also, of course, on our view of mob families. And by the way, this movie not only is one that a lot of people recognize and remember, it also won, it won 3 Academy Awards. One of which was for Best Adapted Screenplay, and it won 5 Golden Globes. So it's been very successful in multiple ways. So let's just jump into what we're going to do here. Today, we're going to be working with, first, what makes a movie great, and we'll look specifically at this one for that. How do you write incredible lead characters? And as we're doing that, we'll be analyzing The Godfather, and I'll be showing you how they did what they did. Now, I'm not saying this is the perfect example or any of those kinds of things. Every time we look at an example, every time we analyze something, we are looking for what can we learn from it? What will be valuable? And then we'll talk about the upcoming class, the 30-day screenplay, for those of you who either want to write your next script or who want to learn how to write scripts really quickly. And that may sound like, if you're not thinking about it, it may sound like, well, who cares if you write it in 30 days or 5 months? And if you don't have any aspirations to come into this industry, absolutely. But if you're thinking about coming in, being able to meet deadlines, being able to write really quickly makes a big difference. So we'll talk about that when we get to the end. The model. First question, what makes a movie great? And I'm going to give you some of my thoughts on it. First one is that you have an intriguing concept and world. Now, this can make a huge difference. If you have an average world, if you have a world that's so what, if you have a world that it makes no difference, you just gave up one of the huge opportunities you have to keep people engaged. So this stuff's pretty important. Having outstanding lead characters makes a difference. I think everybody would agree on that. We'll discuss that. And having a challenging transformational journey. Now, I'm going to walk you through Michael's transformational journey so that you can see that. But a transformational journey is a key from 2 perspectives. First, it keeps an audience engaged, right? And that's important. But second, having worked with people who are doing movie trailers, I'll tell you, this is 70 to 80% of the movie trailers that are put out are the transformational journey. So if you have a great transformational journey, a producer can instantly see that's something they can sell to an audience. So that's worth mastering. The real answer to the question, what makes a movie great, in my opinion, is the writer's decisions. It's you, right? It's the decisions that we make. And this is one of these things where a lot of times people will say, well, it just pops into my mind. And so, yeah, if a great idea pops into your mind, spectacular. If it doesn't, then the job is to use your creative skills to be able to create this whole thing that's going to change people's lives and going to be able to cause them to fall in love with your movie and recommend it to every person that they talk with. On The Godfather, and of course, I'm just presenting my own opinions here, but I think they'll make a difference for you. First thing was the intriguing sub-world, right? And in this case, up until this movie came out, I don't think we had seen a movie about a specific mob family and their enemies. Now, we had seen mobsters up until that point, but never witnessed it this way. So this was a unique subworld that that intrigued us and engaged us emotionally. We had a deep dive into mob politics and family dynasties. So this was one of those moments where we got to see what does it look like, not only if you're a mobster, but if your whole family's in the mob, by the way, and you're a dynasty, you're one of the very tops. And then the transformational journey of Michael Corleone. And I'll walk you through this here in just a little bit, but I would say that transformational journey engaged people in an interesting and compelling way. And we'll discuss that when we get to it. One other thing that I thought really made this movie something was the use of both covert and overt antagonist. They basically had two antagonists. One was covert, the other was overt. So we got to see the two opposites playing together in that situation. And again, I'll walk you through that as we go. This is another question we have to ask. Why did we fall in love with these mobsters? Now, if you can create this kind of experience for your audience, where in this case, we had kind of the entire family was essentially an anti-hero, but they caused us to fall in love with them, even though we watched them commit crime after crime after crime after crime, right? It's like, it's just magic what was done here. So let's talk about it. First, we had intriguing characters in an intriguing world, right? A place where you could say this line, make him an offer he can't refuse. Which in that case, it also points to, they had some very interesting dialogue that had us look into this world in a different way. They had some unique strategies. Up until that point, I'd never seen the horse's head in a bed strategy, right? Or we had seen restaurant scenes where somebody had been killed. So I guess that one's not completely unique, but the baptism while killing the heads of the 5 families, that was pretty new at that point. Distressful situations. So here's what this does. When you put a family in a distressful situation, the audience cares for them, right? We're watching people, again, in this case, who are committing crimes, and yet we are worried about them because they're in a stressful situation. They're in distress. Bad things are happening. And that makes a difference. And in this case, like, take a look. The father shot 5 times. Sonny was killed. Michael's wife was killed. Other mob families plotting against them, right? We were going through distressful situation after distressful situation. And because of that, we cared for them. And then they had family issues. They loved their families. And we're constantly dealing with those issues, and those were things we had all experienced. So it was kind of an interesting thing where we're seeing, this mob world, but we're going, oh, they have the same problems I have at home. I think that makes a difference. The model, let's go back to this. Second thing is incredible lead characters. And first thing on that is that your lead characters need to deliver on that concept powerfully. If you have lead characters that the moment you tell somebody them, they don't see that concept being delivered, you got to do some work on that. Those characters earned their way into the story, right? We had mobsters there who had earned their way. They had worked their whole lives to get there. The Godfather clearly had earned his way. every person in the family had gone through all kinds of emotional issues to get there. We look at Michael. Michael earned his way, even though he came in as an outsider. First, he was part of the family, but the other thing is he came back as a war hero. These characters were designed for this story. And they were built, I would say, through simple but powerful profiles. And I'll give you a couple of simple profiles for two of the characters so that you can see how those work. And then this is the other question, what draws us to this character. Now, let's just take a look at Michael, because this is actually Michael's journey. So he starts out as being the most normal of the Corleones. And I think that was an intelligent decision. Whoever made that decision, whether it was in the book or, the director or the writer, whoever made that decision actually brought the audience in, right? We were coming in with Michael. We were connected to Michael because he was normal. He wasn't one of them. He was this outsider from that family mafia business. And we were outsiders. So he was just like us in that situation. He had to justify his family to his date, which I'm sure every one of us have had that happen at least once or twice. And if you haven't, you've probably watched your kids do it. I know I have. So this is kind of a common situation. They connected us to Michael in that way. He didn't approve of some of their ways, right? Remember his line, "That's my family, Kay. It's not me." And at that point, it was true. It wasn't him, And one of the things that I always found interesting was when people talk about this movie, a lot of times they talk a lot about the Godfather, as in Don Corleone. But this movie really is about Michael's journey, right? This is about him becoming the Godfather. So why do we believe Michael's the right character for this? And this is a question you have to ask, especially about your lead characters. You need to be looking at those lead characters. If you're talking protagonist and antagonist, you need to look at them and say, what makes them the perfect character for this story, right? So with Michael, he was a war hero who is capable in life and death situations. And if you hadn't thought about it this way, it's like, if he would have come in having been, let's say, in the Peace Corps before coming in, would we have thought that he could do some of the things that he did? Wouldn't it have probably seemed more out of character? So he doesn't back down to the captain's power play. So at that point, up until that point, we're kind of seeing him as, hey, he's this war hero who's come back. He has nothing to do with this mob business. He is, he's the one that everybody's saying can't be part of it, yet he's the one who stands up to the captain. He protects his father no matter what, right? This is all saying he's right. And the other thing is he starts out as being the least likely character to become the Don. And that's important for a couple of perspectives. For the transformational journey, right? It takes him from being the least likely character to being the best at what he does. It also has us relate to him. It also creates kind of a surprising situation for us, But I want to note one more thing. Michael has no fear of killing. And that was kind of an insight. I think I'd seen this movie 5 or 6 times before I recognized that. It's like he has no fear of killing. Likely this came from him growing up in the Godfather's world, but also he had just gotten back from war, right? So, he understands that stuff. And this line right here, he kills strategically and without telegraphing it to his targets. That's important, because that's part of who he has to become, is he has to be able to do that as part of his job. Now, I'm not standing up for him, by the way. But for him to be able to accomplish what he's going to accomplish, this is a major internal part of the process, him having this skill set when he comes in the door. Even though at the beginning, we're not recognizing it. We're not seeing that at the beginning. It shows up as we go along. So then we have two antagonists in this movie. And I know people would say, well, it's the other mob families, or it's, anybody in the mob, or the cops, or, this or that or whatever. But the real antagonist in this movie, the first one, is Sollozzo, right? And he is the overt antagonist. He shows up in the first half of the movie. He actually dies at the midpoint. And throughout that period of time, he's going to show up as like a pretty bad guy. So let's see what he does. I just want to walk you kind of through his profile so you can see this. His traits: he's bold, ambitious, formidable, and he communicates well, right? He sits down and conducts a meeting with the Don and that family as if he's a corporate professional. So I thought that was pretty interesting. His motivation, clearly power and money. His subtext: he talks about working together, but he wants total control. And his external journey, he goes from soliciting partnership to conducting a successful and violent coup against the Don. So with both of these antagonists, you'll see there's basically no internal journey that's going on. We don't really get a chance to see that. They're there really, if you look at it from a story perspective, they are there to assist Michael in his journey, sometimes in a very, very violent way, sometimes trying to kill him, all that kind of thing. But, overall, usually when you have an antagonist, you're not really looking at their internal journey. With Michael, it's a different story. We'll be looking at his internal journey. So this is our overt antagonist. He shows up as the antagonist for the first half of the movie. Our covert antagonist is Barzini. And Barzini is there from early in the movie, but in the second half, it becomes clear that he's an antagonist. So let me walk you through who he is. His traits: he's covert, he's political, reasonable. He seems to be very reasonable. He's a behind-the-scenes player. And really, you have to go back and watch that movie. Every time you see him show up, he shows up in the first half as somebody who is just trying to make peace, right? But his motivation is he wants what the Corleone family has. He wants the Don's power, and he basically wants to take control of everything. His subtext: he presents himself as a peacemaker, but he's the one who set up Michael's attempted assassination, along with the attempted assassination on the Don. So his external journey is from being a supportive collaborator to a covert assassin. So again, he showed up as the antagonist in the second half of the movie. So if you haven't had a chance to watch it from this perspective, I think it's an interesting perspective. After we discovered this, I went back and watched it again. And it's like, oh, when you're watching those two antagonists in the background, it's interesting to see what they do and how they set things up. So back to the model, the transformational journey. So again, in my opinion, If you have a movie that doesn't have a strong transformational journey, if you have a script that doesn't, this is one place to look to make major improvements pretty fast. So the journey must change their life. This is a major arc. A lot of times people will tell me a transformational journey and it'll be like, oh, I'll say, what's the transformational journey? And they'll go, well, the character goes from not feeling so good about themselves to feeling stronger or something like that. And it's like, okay, that could change in 1 minute. A person could have that transformational journey in 1 minute. They could shift how they think, or something good could happen in their life. What we're talking about here is something that changes their life in a way that is beyond them just simply making a choice. The journey needs to be both external and internal. Now, let me tell you what I mean here. A lot of times I'll see dramas where the character only has an internal journey. We were only focused on how the character felt, what goes on inside the character, what's important to them, how are they dealing with their internal issues. And their external world is just kind of a static snapshot of something, or it's like, okay, we get to go through their daily lives. What I notice is there are kind of two sides to this, and it seems like people either fall on one or the other. A lot of times I'll talk to people who are action writers and they'll have a total external journey that's amazing and no internal journey, and so whichever side you happen to be on, if you're great at the external journey, then I want you to focus on the internal journey. If you're great at the internal journey, then I want you to focus on the external journey. You need both, especially to have a real transformational journey. If one of the two isn't showing up, you're not there yet. And then you need to build in these learning obstacles that force them to change. And this is part of it. If you have a character going through a journey and every step of the way they're going, okay, let me see, what would I change next? Now that's me being kind of obnoxious about it. But please know, you need to take these characters so far out of their comfort zone that they are having to deal with things they've never dealt with in their life. They are having to find out that how they've been dealing with things isn't working, and they're going to have to actually make some kind of change in order to get there. And that's what this does. You create these learning obstacles that force the change, right? And I'll show you those in just a second here. And then the transformational journey needs to challenge their old model of life. And I would say it needs to challenge it down to the core, to the point where it's no longer just surface stuff. It's no longer something they can or can't make a decision about. They have to rethink everything. So if we go to Michael's journey, his internal journey, he goes from fairly innocent to vicious, right? And it's like, if we just saw him in the opening scene where he's sitting there with Kay and they're watching all these people come in, and it's this nice place and there's a celebration, there's a wedding going on, and Michael is talking to Kay about his family because she's going to meet them, right? It's like, all of us have probably been in that situation in one way or another, and yet we didn't become mobsters. So his journey, he started out fairly innocent, and by the end, well, you saw what happened, and it's like killing the heads of the 5 families while having his godson baptized, and being in church and all the things, do you renounce Satan? And he says, yes, I renounce Satan. And then we see somebody else killed. It's like, wow, he got pretty hardcore by the end. His external journey is from being the little brother and the outsider to being the head of this crime family. Now, let me pause here. There are some people who would say, well, how can you call this a transformational journey when he went from being a good person to being a bad person? And I absolutely can understand that. I would say in general, probably we wouldn't be saying, oh, you want your characters to get worse. Although with the TV series Breaking Bad, we saw that and it was very successful. But here's what I would say on this. If you looked at this in a little different way, Michael went from being somebody who absolutely was on the outside, had no idea what he was doing, to becoming the head of this major organization, this huge kind of successful environment, right? We could have essentially said he just became the CEO of a corporation. And he had to change in order to make that happen. So there was a transformational journey. It's just in this case, he's an anti-hero. So he's going from kind of good to really bad, but succeeding. So you can think of it however you'd like. I just think it's really an interesting journey. And there's a lot to learn from it. So let's look at this. Starts out in the wedding. And here Michael's brought in as the youngest son. He is absolutely not part of the family business. This is emphasized multiple times. He says it to Kay. He's not part of the family business. His dad says it. Sonny says it. I think one of his other brothers says it. They're all basically saying he's not part of the family business. He's this young, innocent thing who, nobody expects to even take a step into the family business. In fact, he's actually not allowed. So I think that's an interesting way to start it. At the hospital, after his father has been shot 5 times, he's the only one there to protect him. And he stands up to the captain. He gets his jaw broke, right? But this is a moment when we as an audience start to see him as maybe he's here to do something. He's here to make a difference. Also, at the same time, for Michael, this is a moment where he is forced to stand up, to fight. He is forced to start that process. And I think that's an interesting thing. He didn't just go, hey, Dad, I'd like to be in your business. If he doesn't do this, his father gets killed and everything that matters to him pretty much goes the other way. Then at the midpoint, Michael has volunteered to go talk with Sollozzo and the captain. And he's there on a mission and he kills them both. Now, this is him committing to this journey in a big way. There is no going back after this. So just notice how these steps make a difference in who he is and who he's going to be from that point on. When we get to Italy, he's actually walking around, he's talking to people, he's acting like a normal person, all the way up until a certain point. And I think he thought his life was going to be okay during that period of time, until the day he's to get married. He gets the news that Sonny was killed, and then his wife ends up being killed in a car bomb, which was meant for him. So at that point, we now have the second thing that locks him into this journey. Now he has to come back. He has to deal with this. He is committed to revenge. He returns home. His father starts coaching him on taking over the business. Now, we don't actually see this. What we see is then we see Kay, and he shows up in his limo or whatever it is, and asks her to come with him. He wants her to marry him. And that's when we find out he's been home for a year and his father has been coaching him to take over this business. Which, by the way, implies a major change has happened in the organization and in Michael's future. Then, of course, it's the baptism. And the baptism is the point where, if you look at it metaphorically, he is becoming a godfather. He is there at the baptism of his godson. So he has just been given the title by the church of Godfather. Now, they don't mean mafia at that point, but this is one part of the whole thing. But the other side is his dad has died, and during this baptism, he kills the heads of the 5 families. So that is a baptism of Michael. It's a baptism of his godson. It's a baptism of the entire mob world at that point, and saying Michael now is the new Don. And the very conclusion of it is we see some of the other mobsters giving respect to the new Don Corleone. Now, if you take a look at this journey, this is a transformational journey. Michael has changed. He's gone from being somebody on the outside to being the head of this entire world. That's a pretty amazing change. So, what this part of this comes down to when you're writing is your ability to use even the skills that we've already talked about, but also you may want to be looking at the speed at which you write. And this is something that I didn't even find out until we actually started bringing writers into the industry. I'm talking like 15 years ago. Almost always producers were commenting on how fast or how slow they wrote. I had a writer today who I got on Zoom with. He's in the middle of a deal. They just signed the deal. And the producer's already talking to him about deadlines. How fast is he going to get this thing done? And he said they've had 2 conversations, and in both conversations, the producer gave him a deadline and asked him to move it very fast. This is often the case having to do with producers. But the other question is, if you imagine what you've done, how many scripts you've written so far in your life, what if you had written twice as many or 3 times as many? What difference would that have made for you? And I don't want anybody to feel bad about that, but what if you created that opportunity for yourself? Because that's one of the skill sets. It's a professional level skill set that can make a huge difference. And there's a couple of places that I think it really makes a difference. One is, how much do you trust yourself? How much do you trust your ability to be able to move things forward? If you're already writing and anytime you have a deadline, bam, you meet it and it's 0 problems, and you can write a script as fast as you want, well, spectacular. That's great. That's the objective. But if not, if you're thinking about kind of breaking into this industry, one of the things that you want to be thinking about is getting this skill set. How do you write a script very quickly? Because that prepares you to work with producers, with managers, with agents. And there's a couple of things I'd tell you about it. Again, I'm calling this a professional skill set because I've just seen so many times where it makes a difference how fast somebody writes once you're inside the industry. But I also believe it's a developmental skill set. The more scripts you write, the more successful you're going to be. The more scripts you write, the more you will understand. So these kinds of skills, these are important. And we've developed a set of high-speed writing rules that came from a series of interviews we did, and we'll be happy to share those with you. We've also found that if you can start out by discovering some of the key answers, it makes it so much easier to be able to write at a speed that's necessary in the situations. So stay with me for about 5 minutes. Let me just walk you through this upcoming class. This is for those of you who want to write another screenplay or who want to learn how to write very quickly. And what we found in the midst of our interviews, I was interviewing a bunch of A-list screenwriters who can meet any deadline. They had the ability to raise their speed. They could go from a normal speed, how they normally write, and be able to raise their speed to 3 times that fast and get the thing done on time, right? And this isn't about pushing yourself. It's not about putting yourself in a bad spot. It's just a different set of strategies. So let me walk you through this. In this class, you're going to accomplish this. You'll write a script in 30 days. All you have to do is just do the assignments that come out every day. And this is, it really is, it's a 30-day class where every day you'll be getting a lesson, you'll be getting a prompt, and you just simply do those assignments. Do that, and you'll finish a script in 30 days. You'll learn the high-speed writing model. This will give you the ability to triple the speed at which you write. It'll give you a series of decisions that you make that make it easy for you to be able to write at a high speed. And once you've got that, you can write pretty much any script you'd like inside of that 30 days. You'll also master creating a transformational journey. And no matter what script you're writing, this is one of the keys to your success. It's not just for your characters, it's for how they market screenplays. As I told you, we've worked with one of the companies that consistently does trailers for 3 different studios, and 80% of their trailers are the transformational journey. So that's important, and producers know that. So they're looking at that transformational journey. And so if you want to be able to create really amazing ones, this class is about that. And then in the midst of it, you're going to learn the model for writing any script in 30 days. And so you'll be able to do that from now on. We have, let's see, I can think of about 6 writers right now that have told me they have written 5 or 6 screenplays a year since taking this class. We have one person that emailed me about 3 months ago, and he said he'd taken one of these calls, and he says, I took your class a year and a half ago, and I wrote 12 scripts in 12 months. Now that's him absolutely using this model all the way through. So the question you might want to ask yourself is, how many scripts do you want to write this year? In the next year, what would happen if you could write 2 or 3 or 4 times as many screenplays? What kind of a difference would that make for you? Let me give you a special on this for those of you who would like to consider joining us. The class actually starts on Monday. So we're right near the deadline right now, but this will get you something you can just start immediately. And 30 days from then, you've got a script. So if that's something you'd like to do, the normal price on it is $299. And I've got a special for you that I think will make it really easy. Rather than $299, you can get in at $199. This is for the first 20 people that sign up. This will save you $100 on this class, even though we're right at this spot. We're at the deadline. One other thing, as soon as you sign up, we will send you a pre-lesson on how to create concepts. You've got about 4 or 5 days right now. You can just brainstorm some concepts every day. It will make it as easy as possible. And you can come in then with a list of concepts. You pick the one you like the best, and you go on the journey. So I would love to have you hang out with us and go through this process, but also at the same time, please know this, by doing this, it will change who you are as a writer. It will give you abilities that you probably didn't have before. It will erase some of the things that keep people from being able to write scripts very quickly. And it'll give you the opportunity to write far more scripts in your career than you've ever written before. This is something that not only does that, but Part of the purpose is to have you be able to meet deadlines, even if they're just your own. Like if you want to sign up for a contest and you want to write a script very quickly, this gives you the chance to do that. You also could use these tools as you're rewriting, but if you're working with managers or producers, this gives you a significant advantage because you know what you're doing. It's not just a thing of forcing yourself. You know how to write a script very quickly. It's a professional skill set. All you got to do to join us, go to bit.ly/write-my-next-script and just copy that down right now or click the link. If it's not linkable, go up in your browser, put that address in and go through the sign up process. I promise you this program will make a significant difference in your ability to write and especially your ability to write quickly. So if that's something you want, come join us. You'll love it. With that, this is Hal Krosman with Screenwriting U, wishing you the absolute best. I hope you learned something, got some value out of today. And if you join us for this program, you're going to love what you learn in the midst of it. Good talking with you all. Bye-bye, everyone.